It is a Sunday morning. That would be August 20th, 2017, and I am about to have a sip. Of course, the Golden Stallion here with you for actually a little Star Trek update. I like to do these once a month. I do it for Star Trek and for Star Wars. I don't know if I'd ever do it for any other franchise necessarily, because those are kind of the two megalithic franchises in reality, and I don't give a shit about Game of Thrones, and there's not even enough content really to talk about that anyway. So that's not going to come up. But anyway, I'm going to have just a quick sip here of my my high calf Republic of Tea cinnamon toast tea. Yeah, cinnamon toast. Oh, it's delicious. Ah, so good. Anyway, you didn't listen to this to hear me drink tea. Well, maybe you did. I don't know. Some people are into the lavish mouth noises. You know what I mean? But regardless, so let's talk some Star Trek, because there's actually a lot to say as late. First off, just this past week, again, this is being recorded on August 20th, we did get a new, about a minute and a half or so trailer that didn't show a whole lot new. Like, a lot of the scenes are things that have been shown in other trailers. There's some new lines in it, specifically some new lines from Jason Isaacs' character, Captain Lorca, which, you know, looks to be an interesting character. He's actually the captain of the titular starship of Star Trek Discovery, that being the USS Discovery. But Star Trek Las Vegas was happening beginning of the month, or end of July, beginning of August, which, you know, the Las Vegas convention has always been, I mean, back in the day, I used to hit it, you know, when it was Creation Entertainment and all that. It's always been the biggest Star Trek convention, you know, that of the year and of anywhere. You know, they get all the captains. I mean, or most of the captains. You never end up with, you know, Cisco. Avery Brooks never shows up because Avery Brooks, I think. All right, so two things. So, was it called The Captains? There's the documentary that William Shatner made. I think it's called The Captains, where he interviews all of the captains of Star Trek. You know, of course, he sits down with Patrick Stewart. He sits down with Kate Mulgrew. He sits down with, you know, with Scott Bakula. And he sits down with Avery Brooks. And Avery Brooks, like, I remember, and I think they even made a sequel documentary for the captains, but I remember him sitting down with Avery Brooks, and Avery Brooks was insane. And in fact, Shatner, because part of that documentary has Shatner at, I think, actually a Star Trek Las Vegas convention where he's talking about it. And he just comes out and says, he says, and boy, Avery Brooks, is he nuts? Like, I mean, he just says it. And he is, like, the guy's like playing the piano the whole time Shatner's talking to him, and he's just like, he's speaking poetically. Like, it's very, very odd. Now, he's either losing his mind, or maybe he just hates being, he might end up sort of a situation that I think Leonard Nimoy might have been going through back in the 70s, where he just hated being associated with the character, or with his Star Trek character, with his Star Trek persona. And maybe that's what's going on. And he's like, well, if I just act really, really nuts, no one will ever ask me or interview me about it again. I mean, I don't know, you know. And it's not like Avery Brooks hasn't done other things, right? I mean, he was on Spencer for Hire. He played Hawk on that. He was fantastic. I love Spencer for Hire. It's a classic show. I don't know. But anyway, how did I even get on that? Regardless, you know, yeah, oh, right, that's because I was talking about Star Trek Las Vegas and or the Las Vegas convention, and how Avery Brooks usually doesn't end up there, and, you know, probably that's why, which is a pity, but whatever. Anyway, so a lot of news came out. They announced a whole ton of things to Star Trek Las Vegas for Star Trek Discovery. We'll talk about some of that. We will do a little review of the new trailer, and there's actually some Star Trek X in our news that we'll get into, and that should about wrap things up. But anyway, so with Star Trek Discovery, kind of the news that came out, well, let's do the trailer review first, because then we can talk more about, you know, what was talked about at the convention. This new trailer, which there's a link in the show notes for it if you want to catch it, it'll take you to TrekCore, which is my favorite Star Trek news website, because it's no bullshit. It's just get to the point. I mean, because, you know, there's what is there, treknews.net, and there's some other ones, and StarTrek.com has really been for probably over almost 15 years has been a completely useless website. I mean, just totally useless. And they used to try some really cool shit on that website. I'd love to talk about my personal memoirs, my personal memories of like websites back in the 90s and, pretty much before 2002 when I ended up going into the military. But anyway, yeah, a lot of those sites are just so much fluff as to where, Trek Core, very basic, everything like, let's just get to the point. And it's a great, what's the term that I'm looking for? Anyway, it brings all the other news sites kind of together into one little spot. So anyway, you can see the trailer there. And, here's the thing with this. And look, I'm excited. I am super excited for Star Trek Discovery. In fact, we already have QMX, which is, really high-end, kind of like Sideshow Collectibles. They're a really high-end collectibles company. They just released almost literally yesterday, and if I think of it, I'll put it in the show notes for this episode as well. They just released what I think is largely, ThinkGeek actually released some Star Trek Discovery pins. They released a pin of the Shenzhou that you can get. But as far as for wide dissemination, the very first Star Trek Discovery memorabilia, really. And what they released was they released the pins, like the badges, okay, which they don't work like in the Next Generation where they are the comm badge. There's a little bit of brilliance to the badges, though, that I think is really cool. So first off, they're following they're all the Delta Shield shape, which we talked about this on the last Star Trek update that I did in July. I like to do one a month. They're all, they're all that Delta Shield shape that originally was just supposed to be for the Enterprise from the original series, but now I guess it's Starfleet wide effectively. But they do follow the classic styling from the original series where Command has like that star symbol within it, and then Science has the kind of that circle within it. Engineering has engineering, communications, whatever, has a specific like that kind of that weird, I don't know, it almost looks like the golden ratio shape or whatever. And then you have medical, which that's a little bit different, but the original series did it too at points where it's just like a cross inside the middle of it. And there's gold and there's silver. Like I think Science and Medical have the silver emblem, as to where Engineering and Command have the gold emblem. And now we know, particularly from this trailer, one of the new things that we saw in it is that there isn't just like most of the uniforms look like this blue and gold. Well, there's actually a blue and silver. So if you're a science officer or medical, I guess your uniform will have that blue and silver. I already got my hands on one of the Command badges, and I like the fact that on the badge there's rank, like the rank pips are built right into the badge. I thought that was a nice touch. That's very similar to the alternate universe comm badge that you would see in the Next Generation, where it had like the 4 bars behind the Delta Shield, and that's actually my favorite comm badge, or my favorite badge insignia, whatever. Because it would, you could denote the rank, like if you were a commander, one of the 4 bars behind the Delta Shield would be black. And I always thought that was just really brilliant, that nice minimalist design in a way. So I appreciate what they're doing with that as far as Discovery goes. We now know about that because at Las Vegas, they had tons and tons of areas where you could look at all the costumes and everything. I didn't go to this, just there's, been obviously a ton of coverage about it. So back to the trailer, the 1-minute trailer that just came out. I can't help but feel, first off, I mean, there's some cool moments that happen within it. These aren't spoilers because obviously everybody on the planet can watch the trailer. Like there's the cool moment where a ship bumps into a cloaked Klingon ship, which looks, I mean, that's pretty wild, and it's kind of one of those new things, and that I think a lot of people always thought about would happen in Star Trek, but you never actually got to see it. So that's kind of cool. I still feel like a lot of the moments in these trailers might just be specifically made for the trailers. I think a lot of the quotes and a lot of the lines that are said in the trailers are specifically for these trailers, or they're going to sound drastically different when we finally get to the first episode or the first season of Star Trek Discovery. But I got to tell you, like the visuals, all that looks pretty stunning. I'm not taking anything away from that. The actors, I know the actors are great. There's no Jason Isaacs, I mean, Michelle Yeoh. I mean, go down the list. Even the woman playing, the main character, Commander Michael Burnham, all fantastic. But here's the thing: these lines, like the way they're presenting everything and the lines, it sounds like they're trying too hard. Like they're trying way too hard to make this sound really fucking epic, and it makes it feel cheap. Like, I don't know. And maybe this is the style now. Maybe because I don't watch a whole lot of, I still watch plenty of new shows, but maybe because I don't watch a whole lot of new TV and like I don't see television trailers much anymore. Maybe trailers for TV shows, maybe this is what they do now. Maybe this is how it works, is they have all these cheap and corny lines. I mean, obviously they're going for, with the Klingons, it's very clear, and we'll talk about this more when we talk about what happened or what's been talked about at the Star Trek Las Vegas convention for 2017. With the Klingons, they're obviously going for a very Game of Thrones feel. There's just no doubt about that. I think they've almost admitted it, that's something that they're shooting for. And yep, I get it. Game of Thrones, as shitty as a show as it is considered the gold standard of television right now. Okay, I understand that. So maybe they're just trying to copy. I've never watched Game of Thrones trailers, and I can't bring myself to do it because the show's so boring. But maybe that's the style that they go with. I don't know. So maybe that's it. But at the end of the day, I still feel like everything that they're doing is just for these trailers to make it, more enticing, which, yeah, that's what you want to do. It's just used to be you had to, with a trailer, you generally had to use what's actually in the film or what's actually in the movie or something, right? Because otherwise, I think it feels quite a bit like false advertising, and we're running into all kinds of problems with that, in my opinion, particularly when you think of Star Wars Rogue One and some others. So I wasn't that impressed with the trailer. The lines in the trailer, the trailer only really makes sense for a Star Trek fan because it doesn't feel like Star Trek. Like everything being said, all these other things really doesn't feel like Star Trek. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless you know some of the comments that were made at Star Trek Las Vegas. So as far as like a review of the trailer, I give it like a 1 or a 2 out of 5. I don't know. It was, I just thought it came off really ugly. I can't imagine you're going to get new people on board with it because it's still so confusing. And if you're a Star Trek fan, yeah, you recognize all the, you recognize the tone, you recognize the abstracts and everything, but it doesn't feel like Star Trek at all. You could say that's a good thing, but you don't want to go too far away from what Star Trek's supposed to feel like. Like, I remember, so in Star Trek Nemesis, I remember seeing the trailer for Star Trek Nemesis, and I was like, wow, that looks awesome because we've never had Star Trek like that. But you still felt like it was Star Trek. As to where I'm not getting that same kind of sense with Nemesis where I was like, wow, this is going to be really dark. This is going to be a Star Trek we've never seen before. I just don't feel it just doesn't feel like Star Trek. And the lines and everything in it, like I said, are just fall flat in my opinion. So I'm not impressed at all by it. I mean, there's like one moment of comedy, and that's the thing you got to understand too, especially with the original series. The original series was a funny show. Like people forget that it was campy. I get it, blah blah blah. But like really, it was a genuinely funny show. Where you laugh because the joke hits, the joke lands. And I don't know. I feel like Discovery is going to kind of lose this. But to make sense of kind of the because it seems like these are very imperfect people. Which is fine, because a lot of people have that critique of 24th century Starfleet, right? With Picard and all them. It's like, wow, we're not, humans aren't actually like that. I wish we could get to that point, but we're not actually like that, and I can't relate. I disagree with that sentiment. I think, no, go ahead and show off what you think humanity can be, and then people can aspire to be that way. It's not like we can't connect with them or something. They're still human. But anyway, I'm going to read something here from Akiva Goldsman, actually, from Star Trek Las Vegas, and he's the producer for Star Trek Discovery. And I think he explains kind of why there's such an ugly, really dark tone involved. So here I'll read it. Quote, "You will find this to be far more serialized than DS9 even in its last 2 seasons. So this is by far, let me amend it, the most serialized version of Star Trek that has ever existed. And as such, it is long-form character storytelling. Without conflict, there is no long-form character storytelling. Obviously, there's a tremendous amount of conflict in the original series, and there's a lot of sort of aspirations towards the ideals of the Federation, and then we sort of made the Prime Directive just to break it, apparently. So part of what we tried to do is speak to how these philosophical precepts came to be. So it is entirely the outcome role of the show. So, Stallion breaking in. So this is the point of the show, okay? Let's read on. Quote, of the show, to arrive at the principles, the utopian principles that I think are endemic to Star Trek, and at the same time not to suggest that doing that is simple or easy. But you can't simply be accepting and tolerant without working for it. And so this show is about that struggle. You'll tell us whether we succeeded, but the outcome is always to earn the philosophy rather than present it as a fait accompli. So, okay, end quote. So, right on. Like, I get it, okay? I get what you're doing. You're wanting to show how humans get to kind of like that way of thinking in the original series. And it's true that, like, even in Voyager, one of my favorite moments in Star Trek Voyager, which of course takes place, 100 some odd years after Discovery, like 150 years or so after Discovery. Or yeah, something like that. Anyway, but in Voyager, there's the great line where Captain Janeway, where she's talking about the days of Kirk and how they were more cowboy. And they were more cavalier, and, they were fast and loose with the rules and all this. So, yeah, I mean, even within the Star Trek canon that we know, there has been this progression of, we're not perfect yet. We're not perfect yet. We're getting there. We got there, come to the middle of the 24th century. So, yeah, I get it. You can do this, but really Enterprise was supposed to kind of do this. Like, it really feels off, the way that they're presenting this, but I get it. And it appears, based on especially the recent trailer I was just talking about, that's definitely what they're shooting for. That's the style they're going for. I completely understand that. But anyway, also so trailer's done talking about that, but let's get into the other things discussed at Star Trek Las Vegas. Supposedly, and I cannot believe nobody has a fucking copy of this, and maybe somebody does and they can send it to me, or, at least has a link or something to it. Apparently they played the Discovery theme at Star Trek Las Vegas, what the new theme song's going to be, and it was a full score music. They admitted that, like, the beginning we do know the beginning and the end of it have the keys of the original series of classic Star Trek. I mean, maybe they went with the Next Generation, more of the opening for the Next Generation. I don't know, which was also kind of the original series. But anyway, they said you're going to recognize the notes at the beginning and the end, and then in between it'll be something unique. So good. They're not going with Where My Heart Will Take Me that Enterprise had, even though the first couple seasons, like when they turned it into almost like a banjo, like country song, I thought that was shit. I was like, wow, what the fuck were you people thinking? But the first and second season version of that by Russell Watson, I thought was awesome. I thought it was properly epic, and it fit for the time. But whatever. Anyway. So, so we got the trailer. We got that with Las Vegas. Now, one of the more interesting conversations that was had at Star Trek Las Vegas was about the Klingons. And they tried, because obviously people are asking a million questions. Why the fuck do the Klingons look the way they do? What is with all this stuff that they have that we've never, ever seen before? It's like you created a whole new thing. Well, to some degree they did. What they talked about on various panels there was that the Klingons, apparently have a bunch of different houses, which is true. We know that from other Star Trek, from the rest of the franchise, that the Klingons do have differing houses, and that the Klingons we're seeing in Discovery are from, Klingons that don't live on Kronos. I mean, they're from, obviously all Klingons are from Kronos, but these are from a different planet. They're a different house. They have different traditions, blah, blah, blah. Which I'm okay with that. Like, I think that explanation, honestly, is fine. Okay, so it's an offshoot of Klingons, or not an offshoot, but it's just like a different tribe of Klingons. And so they have a different look, different stylings, and all this stuff. Great, let it be. And I'm sure that come, once this is all out there and the first season's kind of run its course, I imagine in varying Star Trek comic book properties, at least, and maybe even novels, you will end up with interacting with this particular Klingon house. that's being put on display in Star Trek Discovery. Or maybe by the end of the show, that house will be literally wiped out, like completely wiped out. You kind of get the sense in the rest of the Star Trek history that the Klingons are almost always in almost a civil war. I mean, there's the big one that happens, of course, in the Next Generation in the Redemption two-parter, but you get the sense that these little squabbles sort of happen all the time, and they're always arguing with each other. You particularly get that as well in Enterprise, that in Star Trek Enterprise that happens, and this isn't that far removed from Star Trek Enterprise, so it kind of fits. Like I could see this, and having that interpolitic within the Empire itself. Yeah, okay. I really don't have any problem with that. So, yeah, I mean, those were kind of the big things that came out of Vegas. There was the talk about McFarlane Toys is making the toy line as well as a lot of the prop replicas. Like I said, the insignia badges, those are being made by QMX, or at least they're the first ones to come out with them. And they're full metal, the whole thing. Maybe McFarlane Toys will come out with plastic ones. I don't know. But you got to see the phaser and all this different stuff. And Todd McFarlane was actually there to announce most of it and talk about it. And a lot of the stuff that they had on display looked absolutely gorgeous. I mean, so, this is going to have a beautiful toy line. Honestly, Enterprise had a beautiful toy line, just it seemed kind of limited and nobody really jumped on board with it because they went with Art Asylum for Enterprise. And those were some of the most photorealistic action figures I've ever seen. I mean, they were just stunning. How those looked. And I imagine the ones from McFarlane Toys are going to be the same. Whether or not people are going to jump on board with, say, the toys or whatever else, I think is really going to depend on, okay, is the show actually any fucking good? I mean, yeah, there's Star Trek collectors that are going to collect anything. I understand that. So that was talked about. Otherwise, there wasn't a whole lot of big news. There was more just talking about the direction of the show and all this. And I feel like that was talked about so much, like kind of the quote that we mentioned from Akiva Goldsman there, that I think they just figured it out. Like, because they talked about it with such excitement, not because I think that they were being held back from being able to talk about it, but because it finally just clicked for them. I wouldn't be surprised if this is like Star Wars in 1977, where it's, right before they shipped it off to the theater to play in May, at the end of May, they were still in the editing room. I get the feeling that that's how this is going to be. Like, I mean, this is going to be right up to the last minute that they finally, whether they feel comfortable with it or not, that they put it together finally and put it out there. I'm still really concerned about the production process of this show, and I can't wait to hear kind of more on that. Especially if the show fails, then we'll really find out what happened, and that's going to be like I said before in previous Star Trek updates. That's going to be almost probably as interesting a story if Star Trek Discovery has an interesting plot as that plot could be. I mean, it's really got to be something. So I, what the direction they're going with everything, I don't know. I kind of find that to be boring. I don't mind that it's serialized. I still think it's hilarious that I know for a fact Rick Berman and others, the people running Star Trek back in the 90s, insulted the concept of serialized television. They insulted my personal favorite show, that being Babylon 5, saying that, oh, no, who the hell wants to watch a 5-year story arc? No, we'll give you complete episodes, every hour, every week, and that's it. And now, obviously, they've completely changed their tune. So yeah, Star Trek Discovery, I'm still feeling a little skittish. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for new Star Trek. I'll watch it. I'll watch the fuck out of it. Okay. But yeah, I'm skittish. I have no problem admitting that. Let's see. Also, they finally announced one of the, in fact, you can pre-order it. I did. I pre-ordered it on Audible on September 26th. Now, the show is going to premiere. Star Trek Discovery will premiere on September 24th on CBS. I believe this is still the case, that the pilot will premiere on CBS, and then the rest of the season will only be on CBS All Access. Now, I'll tell you that if you don't want to be the torrenting type, and it's fine if you do, but if you don't want to be the torrenting type, you can, if you go to ThinkGeek and you buy their USS Shenzhou pin, you get like a $30 credit. The pin costs $30, it's $25. So the pin costs $30. You get a $25 credit for CBS All Access. So you can effectively buy that pin and, get CBS All Access for free. for hopefully the amount of time it would take to actually watch Star Trek Discovery. But there's going to be a book coming a couple days after on September 26th that will be a prequel book, and it's called Desperate Hours, Star Trek Discovery Desperate Hours. I actually already have it pre-ordered on Audible. I hope they do a full production where there's sound effects and the whole thing. I would be very excited to have that. They did talk about that there will be comic books coming out. So there's a lot going on here as far as that goes. And if you want to pre-order Desperate Hours, I'll actually put a link in the show notes for that, and that'll take you through the Sex and Science Hour Amazon link if you like. So that's cool. I'm up for that. I can't wait to listen to it. And, definitely they have said that with Discovery that it's going to be like Star Wars is now, where the comics, the books, whatever, that they're all canon. Like that now there is a grander canon in play here. So now I'm intrigued to find out, because there's the new, when is it coming out? There's the new Star Trek Enterprise novel, which those have been phenomenal. Ever since Simon & Schuster did the reboot. There's the new one coming out, which is part of the Rise of the Federation series, called Patterns of Interference. That's coming out August 29th. I would be intrigued if somehow you start getting mentions of things that precede but are relevant to Star Trek Discovery in these novels. I think that'd be really cool if they do that. I don't know if they're going to, because I don't know exactly that all novels, particularly from the reboots of Simon & Schuster, if all of those are considered canon now. There's no reason for them not to be. I mean, because there's not that many made, but I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. So anyway, yeah, Star Trek Discovery, I am, again, skittish. I'm very skittish about this, but excited all the same. I'll watch new Star Trek. It doesn't really matter. Now, let's shift gears a little bit, and this actually has relevance to Star Trek Discovery. But there's a story, I'll put a link in the show notes for it, that now they've decided, Paramount and CBS have decided at the end of the Axanar case, which we talked about on a Sovereign Tech Prime episode a few months ago, where Paramount and CBS came out with these guidelines for Star Trek fan films, because if you remember, there was the whole case about where there was the movie that was being made, Star Trek Axanar, which they made prelude to Axanar, which is like a little mockumentary, a serious one, but it was pretended to be a documentary within kind of the Federation or something. It was like 20 minutes. It was awesome. And the theory going was that Paramount and CBS were sweating the fact that Star Trek Axanar, which was going to take place before the original series and was going to deal with Garth of Izar, which is a character we know from the original series, and was going to have to do with the 4 Years' War, kind of with the Klingons. It was going to, it looked really good. I mean, and they Indiegogo'd Kickstarted $1 million. Like they crowdfunded to over $1 million to make this movie. And you had some big names. You had Richard Hatch, of course, who's now passed away. And he's not going to, because apparently now they are going forward with making Axanar. It's just going to be in 15-minute increments, like a little web series. And of course, Richard Hatch isn't going to be a part of this, and that's a shame, because he died, and he died because before being able to be in Axanar, because of all the fucking legal bullshit, because of the whole court case. That's tragedy. Well, anyway, I've talked about that in previous Patreon episodes. I did a whole Patreon episode when Richard Hatch died. But anyway, so we had those guidelines that we talked about on Sovereign Tech Prime. And now they're actually, Paramount and CBS are working with the guys, particularly James Cawley, who makes the fan film series called Star Trek New Voyages, which is a well-done show. It's not as good as Star Trek Continues, in my opinion, and the acting is not up to snuff. But, I mean, they get some big actors. They've gotten George Takei on it and some others. But anyway, so Star Trek New Voyages has had a really good relationship with Paramount, I guess, and they're going to create a fan film academy. Now, likely because it's going to be using the really picture-perfect sets from Star Trek New Voyages. James Cawley is based out of Ticonderoga in New York. So likely this fan film academy is going to be there. And people can go there and they can learn and they can even make use of the sets and all this stuff. So this is the fan film thing, because of the case that Paramount and CBS made against Axanar, is going to probably turn into a money-making scheme. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of licensing fee that will go out to Paramount and CBS. And so they're going to make a ton of money off of this. And they're going to get free advertising because people are going to be making fan films or anything. That free advertising should have been fucking enough for Paramount and CBS. But you know what's really... So I get it. I think it's kind of crap that they're doing this. I mean, I don't mind if somebody wants to make a fan film academy for Star Trek movies. There's nothing wrong with that. I just don't like the fact that it's coming out of all of this fucking, this legal hubbub. But this sort of put things into perspective for me of what I think was really happening and what really happened around Axanar. I don't think that they had the foresight that they wanted to make a fan film academy. No. Okay. But what I think did happen is that maybe CBS particularly was because, and CBS's people have been the ones out in front talking to the Star Trek community about what's going on with Axanar. I mean, yeah, J.J. Abrams come out with his lines, but everything he said ended up being bullshit. So I kind of get the sense that Paramount wasn't so sweating about this. But CBS was, and why? Maybe because CBS has had the abstract notion since 2015, which would have been about right, that they were going to make Star Trek Discovery. And that Axanar when Axanar would come out and be produced and everything, that it would directly conflict with what they were doing with Discovery, and they were probably worried that there would be massive confusion around, wait a minute, is this Discovery? And they also were probably sweating that it would have been great Star Trek, but which I've mentioned that before. But now I'm starting to think that that's why they took a stand against Axanar, because they didn't put a stop to Star Trek Continues. They haven't put a stop to New Voyages. In fact, as we can see, they're working hard with them. Axanar was the target, and probably because of the timeline that Axanar was going to take place in, which would have been effectively the time of Discovery, Star Trek Discovery. Also, I wouldn't be surprised now that I'm kind of thinking about it, like there's no reason Garth of Izar can't be in Star Trek Discovery. And that would be awesome if you had that connecting tissue, involved with the show. So the Axanar thing, now I think it finally clicks. In my mind, to me, what I think is really going on here is that Axanar was attacked, was gone after. Yeah, part of it was because it was such a beautiful production and was probably going to be a better movie than anything Paramount or show that CBS has put out ever. Or maybe not ever, but you get my point, in a long time. But also that it would have fucked with, with kind of the popular consciousness around, Star Trek Discovery. Like, wait a minute, didn't we just see this? Wait, this is better than what CBS is making, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was fucking with Discovery, with what they knew they wanted to do with that. Even though, in initial talks for Discovery, it sounded like the show could have taken place, like, there was rumors it would take place after Star Trek 6 and between Star Trek 6 and The Next Generation. But yeah, not now. I think that all makes sense. So that's kind of my thinking there, is that the attack on Axanar, as it were, because they've already said, the guys at Axanar said that they've had to completely retool the script and everything that they've got going on. And I don't think it's because of the very unfortunate death of Richard Hatch. It's probably so that maybe either it can fit in with Discovery or what, I don't know. So anyway, I'll be keeping tabs on that. And every month, like I said, I do one of these Star Trek updates. I also do a Star Wars update every month. And I'll break it down for you. So, again, not the future of Star Trek. It has the chance to look bright, but I'm still feeling queasy, like I said, about all of it. But there's some cool stuff coming. Like I said, I think after Star Trek Discovery comes out, and especially if it's successful, Star Trek 4, the J.J. Abrams Star Trek 4 will probably finally be announced, and they'll go forward with that, which I look forward to. I think they keep publishing Star Trek Beyond, not Star Trek Beyond, Star Trek Boldly Go, which is one of the best comic book series out there right now. I think they keep publishing that just because they know or they want to keep people on the line that are really looking for more of the Kelvin timeline. And it is a phenomenal comic book. I mean, it's really, really cool. So they're doing a great job of keeping people satiated a little bit until they can maybe officially announce Star Trek 4 without creating any kind of confusion. And if that ends up coming true, that's actually going to bolster my whole theory that the reason Axanar was gone after by Paramount and CBS was because it was going to fuck with Star Trek Discovery. So anyway, boy, it probably won't be till next month. The next Star Trek update won't be until after. In fact, it'll probably be like September 30th. It'll be the very end of the month, because what I'll do is I'll have Stephanie on. Maybe I'll have someone else on. We'll see. And we'll talk about the first episode of Star Trek Discovery, and I will also do a review of the book Desperate Hours, because that'll come out on the 26th, and I can listen to an audiobook in a day, and then I'll review that as well in the same episode. So your next Star Trek update will be a little over a month away, but it'll still be within September, and we'll cover all of that. I'll probably also talk about Mirror Broken. Or maybe I'll save that for October. Whenever the entire Mirror Broken miniseries, which is the Next Generation Mirror Universe comic book series that's going on right now, which is fucking brilliant so far. They're 3 issues in, and it's amazing. Maybe I'll talk about it then, and I'll, whenever that series comes to completion, even though I hope it becomes a monthly ongoing, because I think it is so cool. In fact, spoiler alerts, finally got a look at. Because kind of the plot of that is that you're going after, or Picard is the captain of the Stargazer, and the Terran Empire hasn't actually gone away, which is sort of what the idea you got from DS9. But the Terran Empire is actually kicked back just to the Sol system, to where Earth is. And so you have ships kind of patrolling the entire solar system, and that's about all they do. But the Terran Empire is working on a Galaxy-class starship. Okay, you find out. And it's this wild advancement for them. And the cool thing is you finally get to see, and it's the Enterprise, and it looks like the Enterprise D, but not just any Enterprise D. It looks like the future Enterprise D from All Good Things, where it has the 3 warp engines, and it has that huge plasma or whatever phase cannon that is on the bottom of it. And I was like, oh, that's even better. That is so cool. I love that ship. So anyway, very, very nice. Very excited about that. That whole series has just been very sexy and very cool. Mirror Picard is almost my favorite Star Trek character already. He's so badass. Him and Inquisitor Troy. Woo. But anyway, so yeah, and if you didn't check it out, and I may put a link to it in the show notes as well. I did on my YouTube channel. I did an unboxing of the plaque, the 1x1 or 1-to-1. Sorry, 1x1. The 1-to-1 size. The exact size plaque. For dedication plaque for the USS Franklin NX-326 from Star Trek Beyond. I finally got that. That's already well sold out. I pre-ordered it like a year ago. I couldn't believe that it finally came in. But I'll put a link in the show notes for that, and you can check my unboxing video out for that. And I talk about some other things during it. I talk about the Franklin and some of the other stuff. So anyway, that's it. Just a nice little Star Trek update, little bonus content for you here for the patrons. Thank you so much for being a patron, of course. Got other content coming out this week. Very exciting stuff, actually, for me that I've been working on for a while. And I will see you on the other side.